welcome to The Upshot, a podcast for dads who try. For dads who are thinking about their legacy and don't want to miss out on all that fatherhood has to offer. I'm Kyle. I'll be joined by my good friend Shane, and we're excited to jump into today's conversation. It's been a morning.
It has been a morning. If only people could see what we've been putting up with this morning, Kyle. I'm surprised this podcast is happening today.
We need some bloopers.
Oh my gosh. I think I'm a living blooper. But I'm glad to be here with you and that we finally got this all figured out. I'm surprised that Luke still volunteers to be our producer after he watches what we do every morning.
Yeah. Thank you, Luke.
Yes, Luke, thank you.
When you see a car crash, you're supposed to stop and help.
Yes. but what if you see it crash over and over and over again? At what point do you just drive by?
I'll let you know.
No, you won't. You just won't be here.
It just won't show.
Kyle, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, you just went to the beach,
I'm
right?
a little tired. We just got home from the beach.
Yeah.
You know, it's a 12-hour drive turned 15 hours with 2 kids, you know.
Oh, you took the kids too? I thought it was just you and Jessica.
Oh, no, this is whole family.
Oh, was it
Whole
still a
family
vacation?
trip. Yeah, yeah.
Good.
It was work,
Good.
but it was really good. Went to the 30A Rosemary area of Florida, and met up with some friends who we had not spent a whole lot of time with before.
They were practically strangers is what I think your wife described to me. So you went on a vacation, you stayed with strangers.
Yeah. And
That's amazing.
And it was great.
Cool.
Kids loved it.
Yeah.
Loved each other. Behaved mostly well. It was awesome.
Do these strangers have kids?
They have 2. Yeah.
Oh,
so ours are 2 and 4. Theirs were 2 and 3.
That's amazing.
So, yeah.
Isn't it crazy how kids, like, there's no, at least from my children's perspective, if they find kids that are kind of like them in age, sometimes not even, like, there are no barriers to friendship. They'll just go out and build sandcastles together the moment they see each other.
It just happens.
Yes, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I could do that sometimes.
Our kids took it was a little bit of a warm-up period, but, after that.
But the level of trust that they have with stranger kids is incredible.
Lucy kept walking around. So the other kids' names were Boone and Olive.
Boone and Olive.
I
like it.
Mm-hmm. And Lucy would be like, my Boone, or my Olive.
Oh, that's
and so you're like, it's pretty cute.
Yeah.
So we had a really, really good time. Got back really late last night. Lucy walks into the house and like lays right on the floor on the hardwood.
Just she's done.
Just
checked out.
Right in front of the door. Yeah.
I love it.
And then they were still sleeping this morning, so
that's great.
hopefully we're good. Brought home a few seashells to take to school for a little show and tell.
Yeah. And then what do you do with the seashells? Because the kids will want to keep them forever. How do you take things away or make things disappear?
The plan is to leave it in her room until it kind of disappears.
She no longer thinks about it. Well, this might not be the right parenting trick, but we think our kids need to learn disappointment and learn disappointment early.
So do you take it from them?
We just like, hey, that seashell's going in the trash. Let's talk about it. Again, I'm not saying it's the right parenting technique.
Do you make them throw it away?
No. Well, maybe sometimes. It depends on what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff that just gets thrown out.
My sister-in-law was trying to break one of her kids from the pacifier.
Yeah.
And had the child, had my nephew walk to the toilet, and he had to drop it in the toilet and flush it and wave it bye-bye.
Oh my.
And it was gone.
Okay, I don't know if that's the right parenting technique. There's some counseling in that kid's future. I just want, hopefully that dad knows.
Shed a few tears.
Oh, okay.
But then when he wanted it, he was like, remember, you flushed it down the potty? And he was like, oh, yeah.
You want to hear the most amazing? Like my wife is incredible, and she's done some incredible things the way she's parented our kids, and we're not perfect, but you want to hear how she handled the pacifier? So each one of our kids got a blanket, which they called B when they were little. So when they'd go to bed, they'd have, and it was a handkerchief.
Okay.
Small. Yep. I mean, our kids are really small to begin with, so small handkerchief is like a blanket to other normal-sized children. So they could only get the pacifier or, put their thumb in their mouth when they had their B. The two went together.
Okay.
So the kids learned to equate I can have the pacifier or the thumb in my mouth when I have my B. So when they went to bed, B in one hand, thumb, and it was like security. Well, when they got to a certain age, we prepared them for like, you are becoming, like you're moving into closer to adulthood, but you're a big boy now.
Right.
And so when you become a big boy, I can't remember the age. Elena would get, she'd be like, well, I can't remember these things. Terrible memory.
She's not going to listen.
I know. She's not going to listen. So whether it was 3 or 4 or 5, there was like this ceremony where we would like, okay, you're a big boy. You don't need the B anymore, but we'll give it back to you when you're 12. And they like bought this. They're like, this is great. This is like a ceremony. I'm moving into big boyhood. And when we took the B away, guess what they never did again?
Suck their thumb.
No, it was just a natural response.
Like you never caught them like, wow.
No, they kind of like put the two together. My wife, it's amazing. Guess what they don't really care about when they're 12?
Their B's.
Yeah.
Has anybody asked?
Oh no,
for
they've
one?
got their B's back, which is fun because it's like a memory to them.
So you
But it's
followed
totally
through.
different.
I thought it was just going to be like
we
a,
kept
you'll
their
forget
B's.
about it. Oh.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, the transition from no longer using a pacifier and thumb was incredible. And I look at my wife like, where do you come up with these crazy things? They're amazing.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, my my other niece, they couldn't get the thumb sucking. Like it just kept going and going and going and going. So they found fingernail polish.
Oh yeah,
that's supposed to burn the tongue a little bit.
Yeah.
One time.
Yeah.
She was done.
It's amazing what pain can do. Yeah.
We haven't crossed that bridge yet.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah.
Hey, what are we talking about today, by the way?
The idea of like sometimes in life we feel stuck, whether that's with, with our kids, in our marriage, at work. I think as men, like sometimes, I was talking to a couple of guys in the last couple of weeks, and that was the theme. Was like I'm just stuck.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't say that in the moment, but it's like I need to make some decisions because what is happening in my life right now is not working. There's more money going out than there is coming in. There is, but I'm really happy, comfortable with my job. All of the stuff at home is the flexibility. Everything is the way it needs to be, but this just is not working. Or, adding a new kid into the family and the adjustments to the new family dynamics and just whatever the level of effort is, it's just not enough.
Or maybe I think,
feeling stuck.
Yeah, there's times when, I think we as men can get filled with regret, decisions we've made that didn't turn out the way we thought they would, or we get to that midlife crisis age where we just think, hey, things aren't going the way that I hoped they would go.
Right.
And we can feel stuck.
Just a deep level of discontentment. Or not unsatisfied.
Sure.
And a lot of times I think, when I think about seasons where I felt stuck, it's like, I don't even know. I don't know when this happened. I don't know why. You just wake up and you're like, this is just off.
Yeah, sometimes it takes you even a while to articulate, I'm stuck.
Yep.
Can you think of a story that you were like physically stuck?
Yeah. Even as, I know I have one in mind, but I'm flooded with stuck memories now.
Yes.
Some not appropriate. But one time there was a time where me and a buddy, we borrowed, my younger brother had a boat. He was working for this lady, and part of his payment was getting a boat.
Yeah.
And it was an old bass boat, and it, the red flag number 1 should have been like, this was a free boat.
Yeah, that's a pretty good red flag.
But we were like, okay, well, we'll take this boat out onto the lake. This is in West Texas, in early summer. Okay, so we take this boat out in the evening, after dinner, where you're supposed to have a couple of hours of daylight. And so we take the boat out to the lake, and then we're on the other side of the lake, no problems. We're hanging out, and the sky starts turning a little dark.
Yeah.
In the and out there, like, storms can happen quickly, and they're usually severe, with thunder and hail and all the fun stuff. And so we're like, well, we should probably get going. About the same time, we saw something like swimming in the lake. We're kind of near some grassy reed area.
This is Texas.
This is that looks like a little baby snake. I wonder what kind.
Delightful.
About that time, it gets to like the engine and the motor, and swims up the motor, And then, oh, look, there's a little tiny rattle on the end of that thing. That's a baby rattlesnake.
It's like
in
hunting
the boat
you guys.
now.
Yeah.
A little bit of a snakes on a plane moment. And so that was about the time we were like, I think we need to head out. It's starting to get windy, and the motor won't start on the free boat. And so it would require us to, so somebody's watching, like, where did the snake go? And the other one's like trying to get the motor to start. So then it required, we need to take the case of the top of the motor off so that we can start this thing. But that's where the baby rattlesnake is.
No.
Like, it's in there somewhere. We don't know where it
went
is.
in the motor.
It's in the motor house. Yeah. It came up the propeller into the motor. So we're taking this
just
thing
jump off
off.
the boat and swim to shore. At that point, call it a lost boat. It's free.
It was free.
Yeah.
Sorry, buddy. Sorry, brother. I'll go get you another free boat.
That's right. I'll Craigslist you a boat.
So, yeah, it was an adventure getting home.
But you were able to pull start it?
We pull started it, made our way home. Still didn't know where the snake went.
Yeah.
Pulling it out, I have my truck down. We pulled it out. Snake drops back out on the.
My gosh.
So the snake was in the boat with us the entire way
Texas.
back. My mom was like terrified. She couldn't get a hold of me because my phone wasn't ringing. But don't worry, the lake patrol was calling me the entire time because she had called them.
That's a good mom right there.
So hail, thunder, rattlesnakes.
You survived
On a boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
I like it. It's a good story.
What about you? Physically stuck somewhere?
I don't have any snakes on a boat stories, but I think I've shared, my wife and I, we had 4 boys, like back to back over 5 years, and we loved to take them camping. So we were on one camping trip. I think we were just down in Bastrop. This was before the fires went through those parks.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful spot. And for dinner, we had Frito pie. We love Frito pie. We had Frito pie all the time as a family. And then following Frito pie, we had s'mores. We learned later that night that when it comes to children, s'mores and Frito pie are not a very good combination. So we're all in this one big tent. There's me, my wife, and our 4 little boys. And middle of the night, I think Elena had just finished nursing our youngest one, Nathan, at the time. And we hear Jonah say the scariest words that any parent wants to hear at like 3 a.m. in the middle of the tent. I think I feel sick. And we did not react fast enough. And we start hearing him, like, he's vomiting. It's just like, ugh. And
everybody's in the same tent.
We're all in the same tent. It's dark. You can't see anything, but you can hear it. And you hear it splatting, hitting things. So I'm jumping out of my sleeping bag as fast as I can. I grab Jonah, and I literally throw him out of the tent as quickly as I can. And he's like continuing to release Frito pie and s'mores. And you can just imagine the smell and the look of
the spray.
Yeah, and what Frito pie mixed with s'mores. Like, I can never look at s'mores and Frito pie the same way again. So we take care of Jonah, my wife and I. Our other 3 boys slept through this whole thing. So we look back into the tent, and there is like a trail of vomit that goes like,
oh no,
Matthew is sleeping, and he's got a trail of vomit like across his whole body. It's just all over the walls, all over the floor, all over everything. I'm like, Jonah tried his best to make sure that every tent experienced what he had to experience, or every sleeping bag, every body, everything in that tent experienced what he experienced coming out of him. And so my wife and I, it's like 4 a.m. There's campers all around us. Jonah's crying. Kids are starting to rustle, and you can't keep 4. So it's like we felt stuck. Like, what do we do in this moment? And so I'm like, we can't clean it. It's just an utter mess. We have 4 boys that are going to wake up everybody within a mile of us. I said, we're leaving. I didn't even tear down the tent.
Just everyone get in the car. I'll come back later.
Yeah. I left everything as is. Kids, we're going. So like Matthew's waking up with vomit across his whole body. And so we cleaned up the kids, got in the minivan, and headed home. I literally like pulled in the driveway, dropped them
Kicked
off,
them all out, and you had to
turned
go
around
back.
And drove an hour drive back to clean up that mess. But that was like in that moment, we felt stuck. And there's just like, what do we do? Yeah. And one thing we've never, ever done again is the combination.
Frito pie and
Frito pie and
s'mores.
s'mores. Parents, don't ever do it.
You know, I'm thinking like, because you're stuck, like, physically. You guys were stuck out there, but I think like the social pressure, that piece, that like, hey, we have to be quiet-ish.
Oh yeah.
This whole time, that would be, I think, the worst part of that experience. I mean, I don't know if it's the worst.
Well, I think
that's an added element that's like.
Yes. Well, and like understanding our unique wiring. Like my wife, she's a strong, confident woman who is not necessarily afraid of upsetting other individuals in certain situations. Like she'd be like, look, our kid has vomit all over him. I think other families will relate and understand that we have a situation over here, and if we wake them up, they'll understand. Whereas I'm like, sometimes can be the insecure people pleaser, and I don't want to bother anyone.
Yeah.
And like those two, sometimes they can really bang heads, or those two can really complement each other well.
Yeah.
And so part of my wanting to like get out of there came from this place of unhealth where I don't want to disturb anybody else.
Right.
So, yeah. So physically being stuck.
You want to go get some s'mores?
No. It took me a while, a long time to even consider eating a s'more again. Just want you to know. It's horrible.
Oh my gosh.
But I think going back to being stuck, like,
Yeah.
it was funny. You know, we talked about doing this topic, and I went and looked for, I wonder if there are resources out there that can help us with what do we do when we're stuck. So I just Googled, hey, what do we do as men when we get stuck? And I was overwhelmed and surprised by the amount of articles, blog posts, forums where men can relate to this idea of being stuck.
Yeah, I did some Googling too, that same phrase. And like so many Reddit threads and like the dad channels on Reddit of like, why do I feel this way?
Yeah.
What do I do? Send me your tips, tricks. Like how do I navigate this? This is the first time.
Yeah.
Or first time that it's bothered me enough to like, I need to make a change.
Yeah.
You know?
So why do we feel this way, Kyle? Like, what is it that causes us to get that point where we feel stuck?
It's a good question.
Luke, you got an answer?
No, I think when I look at seasons where I've actually felt stuck, I'm in kind of coming out of one right now. I think it's a symptom of, for me, the best way I know how to talk about it is where my experience doesn't align with like my value. And so even with the things that I value. So if we think about like the Upshot in general, you know, we're trying to have conversations here for dads who want to improve their upshot, their legacy, the end game. What's the eventual outcome of this whole fatherhood journey as men? When we have a clear picture of that, and then we wake up one day and we're like, I'm not on the path, or there are certain things that have derailed me or are preventing me from fully living into that, or finding contentment in that journey or satisfaction. So I think of like stuckness is you know, being really unsatisfied or discontent with where I'm at in some area of my life, in relation to where I think I need to be or should be or whatever. So that's maybe not even always healthy, because sometimes I think for me, like that stuckness comes from this comparison game that I play with other people.
Oh, yes.
And so I feel stuck because I'm not like Shane or Luke or whoever. My life doesn't look that way. My family's not as fun or, you know, crazy or whatever. And so it's like this, how do we deal with disappointment? How are we shaping what we care about? How are we, you know, so I think the work that we're talking about doing over all of these episodes that we've recorded in the last 6 months or so, it's really important to have strong language and a strong idea of what do we want our upshot to be in the first place. And then I think we start realizing, okay, when I have felt stuck, is it because I'm trying to pursue that? Or is it because I've been derailed and I'm distracted, or I'm looking at something else, or trying to be somebody else or whatever? And so there's you know, I think you can dig into it. It can get pretty deep digging into that. But at the end of the day, like for me, right now, I just left my job 6 weeks ago. Yeah. And I realized, like, when I focused out in the last couple of years at my professional experience, I have felt stuck more often than I've felt deeply fulfilled and satisfied. And I had to make a change. Eventually, the discomfort of being stuck was less than that discomfort of knowing that I feel like I'm wasting potential, or
Sure.
I'm not living into my gifts fully, or pursuing that thing that I think I need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you say, though, to the dad that's listening that can relate to this idea of being stuck and has thought through, I have clarity around what I think my upshot is, or my wife and I have put together what we want our upshot to be, but sometimes we have jobs, we have responsibilities that require us to take care of our family.
Yeah.
But what we do at that job may not scratch the itch or check the box that says you are moving towards your upshot. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, what if we feel a lot of discontentment in what we do job wise, but some guys, may not be in a place where they can just say, hey, I'm going to leave, or I'm going to quit, because that might not be possible for a lot of guys who are listening. And I've met with a lot of men that this is the thing, that like I feel a lot of dissatisfaction, lack of contentment, lack of purpose in what I do.
Yep.
Between the hours of 8 and 5 at work.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually have a good friend who was saying the same thing this last month. I want to do this. I want to go I'm professionally gifted in this area, but right now I'm in a season where I am working this job that I never thought I would be in. I'm managing people and things that I don't really care to do. It stresses me out, but I'm in a season where our family is growing, and this is what's been provided to me, and I'm able to provide for my family, and like this is what I got to do, and I would say the same. So there may be seasons where we have to just, I want to say suffer a little bit, but there's some suffering there. There's some discomfort, and I think that also applies to like our kids. We have seasons that are just super uncomfortable.
Sure.
One of my stories of stuckness today I wanted to share was when we added our second child, Lucy. She cried for 9 months, like almost nonstop. I'd come home from work, Jess would pass over a crying baby to me, and I literally believe this kid does not like me because she just screams in my face. And we didn't know how to get unstuck from that place of like, how do you parent this infant that is fed, cared for, clean, is sometimes sleeping, doing everything we can to control that environment, and yet is just not cooperating. And that's a tough, it's really easy for your mind to deteriorate into places of like, what are we doing wrong? We are not enough. I'm stuck. This is never going to end. And there's just seasons where we have to just live through that discomfort, I think, suffer through it. And that doesn't mean I don't think that we don't try to make changes, but it doesn't get solved overnight, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
I get it. And I think there are situations where like that is a scenario that I think a lot of dads with young kids can relate to. And I want to encourage men and dads, like when you get to a place where you're empathizing with Kyle because you know what it's like to have a really young child that either is wrestling with, the symptoms of being colic, can't sleep well, no matter what we try, things just aren't working. I think we sometimes believe that, we should be able to figure this parenting thing out on our own.
Yeah.
Or we say things, hey, our friends have figured this out. Why can't we figure this out?
Right.
Or we're failing if we ask someone to help us figure this out. Right. And I want to challenge men to have the courage to invite somebody in to say, because sometimes we get like the emotions, just being exhausted and tired and run down, and sometimes we just can't process what's really going on, and sometimes we just need someone else to step in and just tell us like, hey, this moment or this journey through suffering is temporary, and you guys have got this.
Yeah.
And just, long story short, encouraging men in situations like the one you described, it is not a failure to ask for help or to invite someone in. It actually sometimes takes courage to do that.
It takes a lot.
Yeah.
And that courage will come after you say, help me. Like that will
Yes.
fuel you. That will energize you more.
Well, how do we get men to say, like, when you, that statement, I need help, I think a lot of us equate to failure and not equate to courage. And how do we tell ourselves it's not failure to say I need help? It's an act of courage to say I need help.
Yeah.
And take on that perspective. I think that will help a lot of men get unstuck in certain situations.
Yeah. I agree. And I think that is like it's almost like a cheat code in life.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just unstuck. That's in everything. Like at work or with our finance, whatever it is that the challenge is like, okay, no, this is not me failing. Even the idea of failing is a learning opportunity.
Sure.
And so we just have to change it's all mind game.
Yeah.
It's all how we're thinking about it.
Yeah.
If we can rewrite that story a little bit. And I think the other thing with these seasons of like being stuck and asking for help, sometimes it's like, again, the getting out of that season, it may be a 6-month year, it may be a really long journey, but the power of asking for help or to take one step to get help or to change something is, it's like, training for a marathon. I'm a runner. So like the idea, like part of a season of life where I felt stuck was like in movement. Like I was just stuck on the couch, literally. I could not move. I couldn't run around the block without wanting to vomit, but one day of trying that, it's like, okay, well, I'm a really, really long way from running a marathon, but I'm a whole lot more likely to try again tomorrow.
Sure.
And now all of a sudden, like the perspective changes, the stuckness, those feelings of the low feelings, the unwanted emotions, they start to subside. And you start feeling like, okay, well, you're building confidence, you're building momentum, and it's a lot easier to get a little bit more help.
I just like how you said, like, take action or you take steps. And sometimes I know looking back and reflecting on moments that I felt like I was stuck, sometimes I think we will take a drastic step or we don't take a step because the step in front of us that we think we need to take is too big.
Huge. Yeah.
Like if I have a lack of contentment in my day job, the only step that I might be able to think is going to get me out of where I'm at is I have to leave this line of work and go do something else. There was I worked for a company called NOV for 15 years in the oil industry, and I had a variety of roles in that company. And there was early on in my career there, it was more technical what I did. I was they called me a software engineer, but I wasn't a software engineer. Loosely, yes. I was a product line manager, so I was responsible for a software application. And during those two roles, I experienced a season where I felt very stuck. Yeah. That this job lacked purpose. I was not motivated to get out of bed. Why do I feel so much frustration and come home depressed? Because this job is providing for my family. There are other aspects of this job that I really enjoyed, but there was this discontentment. And the obvious step was I have to get out of this place as quickly as possible. It was funny because at the same time, I was volunteering at our church, North Point, and I was taking this assessment that was trying to help me understand how God has wired me or how I'm wired as an individual. And after taking this assessment, we had this conversation with like a coach who would step us through our assessment results. And this coach was asking me questions about, hey, what do I do for work? Yeah. And I told her, hey, I'm a product line manager, and most of my time is spent in spreadsheets, technical conversations with software engineers. And I'm so thankful she said this. She's like, how much time do you spend with people? And I'm like, maybe 10% of my day. And she showed me through my results. She's like, you are wired for relationships, and you are going to experience discontentment in a role where you're just focused on tech, software. And it's funny, at that moment, there was a job opportunity that came up in that company in an area that I was like, there's no way I would do that. It was a manager of a group of people, and I would never have considered it until I recognized that I was wired to do something like that. So I applied for the job, got the job, and it was the best time at that employer. Was, hey, I got to spend my time just managing people, and that's what I was wired to do. And you know, sometimes if we feel stuck in our current job, my encouragement is to challenge men to like, hey, do you know what you're wired to do?
Right.
And that doesn't mean you need to go find that job to do it. I think sometimes we can find opportunities to utilize our wiring in our job. Like, let's say that job wasn't available. There was still opportunities for me as a product line manager to find more time being with people at work.
Right. And to be more intentional with that time.
Yes.
To focus on it, to prioritize it. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think sometimes we can get stuck when we don't feel like we're living out the way we've been designed, the way we're wired.
Yeah. I think a trend that I've noticed with other guys too is this feeling of stuckness also coincides with like our lack of control our lack of, it feels like these things are happening to us. Well, this is my job. Yes. I have to manage the product or product line or whatever in software. I can't focus enough on people. Like we put it on other people.
Sure.
We blame this. I think we have to push through those emotions of like, I'm stuck and it has to be somebody else's fault.
Sure. Like we don't have to try. We don't have to work at blaming somebody.
No, it just
blame
happens.
Comes naturally.
It does. And until we realize like, okay, it doesn't matter how I got here. Like I have to take responsibility for getting unstuck. And I love it too. It doesn't have to be the drastic, like I'm out quitting my job, spend 6 months figuring out what's next. It can just be, hey, let me just take some small actions here, get a little bit of help to understand how I can be a little bit more fulfilled doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I like it.
It's good. And I think that applies to, it feels a little drastic, but that's marriage. Mm-hmm. That's for our kids. That's our finances. That's, we do that in all these areas.
Yeah. I think too, we can get stuck. I think you kind of talked about it a little bit, unmet expectations. Mm-hmm. Whether it's expectations with our spouse, expectations with our kids, expectations with our job, expectations with the size of our house, whatnot. I mean, and we have to be careful when we have expectations that are unmet. Are they realistic expectations? Yeah. Those are things that sometimes we need to talk through with others. So I want to ask you a question that I don't think was necessarily on our list. I'm going to surprise you a little bit, challenge you. What are the things not to do when you're feeling stuck?
Yeah, from personal experience, when I feel stuck, the things I wish I hadn't done is like put my head in the sand, like ignore the problem.
Sure.
I think that's
binge watch Netflix.
binge Netflix, and overindulge.
Yeah.
In whether it's sugar, alcohol, other stuff.
Pursue pleasure somewhere else.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Numb with pleasure.
Yeah.
I think when we feel stuck at home, there's a temptation to like not want to be home. So let's work a little bit later.
Yes.
Or there is let's commit in other areas. When we feel stuck, I think our wives even feel, when we feel stuck in an area, then we just fill ourselves with other commitments, other work, other busyness, so that we don't think about that. I think that's like for me, that's my number one thing.
Sure.
I have to pay attention to, and it's become a warning flag for me in my life of like when I am binging Netflix, when I'm just going through one series into the next, I have to sit there and think about, what am I avoiding right now?
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
Yeah.
What am I avoiding? And there's probably something that I'm avoiding that I feel some sort of stuckness in or discontentment in that I don't want to deal with. That's really healthy, Kyle. Good job. So I think that to me is one thing that I would say don't do.
Yeah.
Or pay attention to. Maybe it's just a warning flag, just like your emotions.
Sure.
I think another thing is like you kind of referenced it. The temptation can be just to swing the entire other way and just like make drastic.
Yeah, don't do anything drastic.
Buy
that really nice car you've always hoped to have.
Yeah. I don't feel like I'm quite satisfied with where I'm at in life. Let's go get a new car.
Yeah,
that'll fix it.
Yeah. So what should we do when we feel stuck?
Yeah. I think you referenced it too, like sitting across from somebody and just saying, hey, here's what I'm feeling. Here's what I'm thinking. What do you think?
Yeah.
What would you say to me? Like, do you have advice, or have you been here? What, so just asking for clarity. Sometimes it's like, even in our stuckness, we don't even have the clarity to fully see the full picture. So getting some perspective, I think, is a really helpful starting place.
I also think it's important just to take that one step further. It's one thing to be transparent with another individual, to say, hey, I feel like I'm stuck.
Yeah.
And we want the kind of friends that will empathize with us and understand our stuckness.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily want friends who will always try to fix things. We want them just to feel what we're feeling and let us know at times that it's going to be okay. But sometimes, are we willing to have the courage to give someone permission to, once we've pulled back the curtain of our life and they can see where we've placed the furniture in our living room.
Right.
And sometimes our emotions or the things that we're experiencing prevent us from seeing the best way to lay out the furniture. Are we going to allow somebody to come in and not just look at where the furniture is placed, but actually help us move it around? Like things like finances. If someone, like when I'm in a situation where our finances are just a mess, like, am I willing to show someone my budget?
Right.
That takes a ton of courage.
Yeah.
But I might not be able to get unstuck unless I not just tell someone about my financial challenges. I actually show them my financial challenges and give them permission to speak into my decisions that I'm making with my finances.
It's good.
Which is scary.
It is scary. Something that you probably realize it, but like the trust that you've created with this person or these people is takes a lot of work. Yeah. Like you've laid a foundation. Sure. You've laid some groundwork for that. And so I think for guys who don't have that person, they can just say like, part of getting unstuck or part of like breaking patterns where I keep feeling like I'm in ruts in the different areas of my life is like, how do I proactively start investing in relationships to where I can't show them my budget today. Sure. But I think I could 6 months from now. Yeah. Like this is the type of person that I want to be able to pursue that. And this is where we get stuck as men. Like it would be easier for us as men. This is weird. I don't know, you might fire me from doing the podcast. Like it's easier to go get a girlfriend than it is to go get another, make a friend with another man, who you feel like you can trust to rearrange the furniture in the living room of your life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like proactively, like if you're tired of being stuck, then how do you go pursue relationships with other men, fathers, like who you can see yourself living life with? One author of a book that we've read, who do you want to sign treaties with in life?
Yes.
Like who are you going to go to war with? Because it's hard.
Yeah.
Like you're going to confront all kinds of temptations and battles and ups and downs and whatever else in this journey in marriage and family and life. And you gotta have men who you're willing to invite into doing that with. Yeah. And that I think is such a powerful thing to start pursuing. And again, it can start with like, hey, I just want to pursue a relationship with you. Yeah. Because I'm stuck.
Which could be the scariest thing a guy could ever say to another guy.
It will be. Yeah, it will be. I remember I did it, and it was like, hey, the story I'm telling myself right now is like, you don't have time for me. Yeah. And that you're going to think I'm needy or what. Like, those are all of the stories that kept me from having a conversation with somebody for months.
I wish as men would understand that those feelings or those thoughts or those voices that we're listening to are probably the exact same things that other guy is feeling.
Yeah, he was like, yeah. I've been putting this conversation off too.
Kyle doesn't have time for me is exactly the same feeling that you have about him.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So to the guy that's stuck, I would say like you do have control over who you're pursuing, and the type of relationship that you want to have with other men in your life that can lead you to a place where you can really be vulnerable to like get into some of the weeds of doing some real work, to not be stuck, to be free, and to be purpose driven and full.
Yeah. I think there's two other types or two other relationships that I want to encourage men to have conversations with when they feel stuck. I think we as men need to have conversations with ourselves. Personally, I never take enough time for reflection. When I feel stuck, I'm just going, like I'm doing, I'm distracting, I'm numbing, I'm busy, I'm doing other things that I think might make me feel unstuck, but it's not going to happen. And so I want to challenge men to take time to reflect on what they're feeling emotion-wise and what is the source of those feelings. Why do I feel stuck? Actually start. It's usually not one thing.
Yeah.
It's usually a job and finances, or a job and my relationship with my son, or a job and it's not. So actually take some time to write it down, to think through your feelings. I know we as men will utilize, I am frustrated, angry, or tired. Those are the emotions we know how to express, but I think we need to express other emotions and really kind of identify the source, not the symptoms of our emotions. And it starts with naming our emotions and going from there. I think another relationship that we need to pursue and have conversations with when we feel stuck is our Heavenly Father. And I think it's important that we as men really challenge our thinking on how we view our Heavenly Father and how we think our Heavenly Father views us. Yeah. I think we can get to a place when we're stuck, when we think God is on the other side of our stuckness, waiting for us to get our act together. Yeah. And he's got his arms crossed saying, hey, once you get out of your unstuckness, I'll be happy with you. Right. And I'm here to live but in honesty, our Heavenly Father is right beside us and wants us to process these raw emotions and the frustration and the anger we feel of being stuck. And he's actually more delighted with us than he's ever going to be every single day of our life, whether we're stuck or not stuck. Yeah. And so as men, what does it look like to have a conversation with our Heavenly Father in that stuckness? Yeah.
I know that it's very easy for us to allow our view of ourselves for us to put that on God, and this is how God sees me too. If I'm disappointed with myself, if I'm calling myself a fraud or a failure or whatever, then that's ultimately I'm going to carry that same thing, or versus going back to the truth of, well, no, how does God see me?
That's so good.
And how do I allow that to help unlock me, to redeem, to help me to fix this, to repair it. Yeah. And the other thing about the emotions too, I think is, as we're doing that reflecting into the awareness of what am I actually feeling is a big part of getting unstuck, and a big part of this journey in our emotional awareness is we have to own those. Those are ours. Shame does not make me angry. I have to own my anger.
Yes.
And
that's good.
When we start doing those things, when we start changing those little things that we think and believe, that's where I think we start feeling momentum. Yeah. So changing the way we think about how God sees us, changing the way that we view our emotions, changing the way that we view the relationships with other men and people in our lives. Those are the small little things that I think will add up powerfully to shape our lives for the better.
I can't remember the quote exactly, but I think it was something like, our life is 10%, or 10% of our life is what happens to us. Yeah. 90% of our life is how we respond to it. So how we respond when we feel stuck, how we respond when we think our Heavenly Father's not happy with us, how we respond when expectations aren't met.
Yep. It's good.
Did we answer all the questions that we had?
I don't know, but I feel like it was a pretty productive conversation.
Hopefully.
For me, at least. So what's something you're taking away today?
Never borrow a free boat. And take it out on a lake in Texas.
That's a good one.
Yeah. That's just not a good idea.
Yeah.
So, what about you?
Don't mix Frito pie and s'mores. Easy.
100%.
Avoid that.
Yeah. Actually, something more serious that I learned, Kyle, was, I was encouraged and motivated by what you said when you talked about taking small steps. because there are moments when I feel stuck. There's something that I'm stuck with right now, and I get caught in I need to take a really big step, and sometimes we just need to stop, reflect, and I just need to choose a smaller step because they're there.
Yeah.
And until I take those small steps, I will continue to feel stuck. So thank you for encouraging me to take little steps.
Yeah, you're welcome.
With my little legs.
Well, I don't even have to make fun of you. You just do it to yourself.
I told you, my desire in life is if I can make fun of myself first, other people can't make fun of me for those things. Whether that's a healthy way of approaching life or not, I'm not sure.
It's been good, Shane.
Yeah, thank you,
It's been
Kyle.
a great show, and can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, guys, we'll see you next month. Bye. Dads, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of The Upshot. Wherever you are, Kyle and I hope you got something out of it. Know that you're not alone in this journey called fatherhood. And we want to encourage you to hit that like button, subscribe button, or whatever button is in front of you with the technology you're using. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time on The Upshot. I can't say no at home, so I can only say no here.
Get it in.
What did you say to me? Yes, ma'am. We didn't have that recording, did we?
Oh, we do.
Do you really? Are you recording? Good. Well, that was before I moved the mic.